was just another case on a gray morning, the kind of file that gets lost between hundreds. A man in handcuffs, head down, thin, wrapped in a threadbare coat that looked like it had survived decades, not seasons. His shoes were so worn out that one of his feet barely touched the floor. His face showed more than wrinkles. It carried neglect. Too fragile to be a threat. Too invisible to be seen as someone. Sebastian Elias Echeverria. 76 years old. No fixed address. Charged with trespassing, the crime, sleeping behind a supermarket at 4 below zero. Among empty sacks and the stale smell of bread, he just wanted to survive the night. The courtroom was cold, almost hostile. At the back, the prosecutor nervously adjusted his tie. The defense didn't even show up. To everyone there, it was just another case. Another homeless man disturbing the order. But for substitute Judge Daniela Molina, it wasn't. Seated at the front, she read through the file with eyes trained by routine. She flipped pages slowly until she stopped. Her gaze froze when she saw the full name of the defendant, Sebastian Elias Echeverria. Her body stiffened. An old memory, stored like a scar, emerged forcefully. It was the name her father repeated in handwritten letters, always followed by the same phrase, "If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have made it back." Gabriel Molina, captain, killed in action 20 years ago. But before he died, he was a hero, admired by a daughter who grew up hearing stories about courage and brotherhood, about a sergeant who dragged him from a battlefield and held his hand when he thought he'd die. She looked again at the accused, head down, eyes lost, shoulders hunched, unrecognizable and unmistakable. Time had destroyed him, but it was him. Daniela swallowed hard, tried to keep her face composed, but the hand holding the pen trembled. The cold institution of the courtroom seemed absurd in that moment. The hero in her father's story, handcuffed for seeking shelter from the cold. While the prosecutor read the charges aloud with indifference, Daniela barely listened. Everything sounded distant, drowned by the echo of her father's letters, and now he was there, forgotten by everyone. Everyone but her. When the prosecutor asked for a sentence, community service and movement restriction, Sebastian didn't react. Daniela didn't move. He had already accepted whatever the world imposed on him. She quietly wrote something on a piece of paper, folded it, called an officer and handed it over. The instruction was clear. Take him to attorney Joaquin Prado. Personally. The officer left without question. In front of her, Sebastian raised his head. For a brief second, their eyes met. She wanted to say something, but not there, not yet. The trial continued, but everything had already changed. As the court carried on its bureaucratic course, Daniela Molina was in two places at once. In her judge's chair, firm and silent, and in the past, hearing her father's voice echo in her memory. He spoke of that sergeant as if he were a father, how he stayed calm in chaos, how he dragged the wounded under crossfire, how he taught more in 3 days of jungle than 3 years of academy. She had never met him. Her father came back alive, but not for long. And now, nearly 2 decades later, that sergeant returned. Not as a hero, but as a defendant, attorney. Joaquin Prado wasn't used to cases like this. He worked with high-profile clients, televised hearings, courtrooms full of cameras. But when he received the judge's handwritten note, he didn't hesitate. He read it once, then again. Please listen to him. He is more than a defendant. That same afternoon, he went to the detention center. The smell of damp concrete hit him as he entered. He found Sebastian sitting in a corner, wrapped in a torn blanket, staring at the floor like it spoke to him. Joaquin introduced himself. Sebastian didn't respond. He sat beside him in silence, then offered him a warm cup of coffee in a cheap plastic cup. Sebastian sipped without looking up. "I don't need a lawyer," he muttered. "What if I'm not just a lawyer?" Joaquin replied. "Then what are you? Someone who believes your name still matters?" No reply, just silence. But something shifted. It wasn't pity in Joaquin's voice. It was respect. Over the next few days, Joaquin dug into Sebastian's past. Military records, public archives, court documents. Almost nothing. Gaps where there should have been medals. Blank spaces where there should have been history. It was as if someone had deleted him, bit by bit. But Joaquin was stubborn. He called in favors. Old contacts. Retired officers. One of them paused when he heard the name. Sebastian Echeverria? Yes. That man was a ghost, a legend. Then why doesn't anyone talk about him? Because after the war he vanished, and no one had the courage to go after him. Back at the detention center, Joaquin returned with photos, files, and coffee. Sebastian remained mostly silent. But one afternoon, he noticed a photograph. A young officer bleeding but smiling sideways. That's Captain Molina, Sebastian whispered. Joaquin nodded. Yes, Daniela is his daughter. Sebastian froze, his eyes filled with something deep. Recognition. Guilt. Memory. He had a shoulder wound. Kept trying to return to the firefight. He used to call me stubborn old man. He wanted to go home. He wanted to introduce me to his sister. For the first time, Joaquin saw him alive. The following days were different. Sebastian spoke more, not as a defendant but as a soldier. He talked about sand that burned his boots, of explosions, of blood and smoke and silence, and always of holding on to hope. Meanwhile, Judge Daniela worked behind the scenes. She re-examined past cases of homeless veterans, found patterns of institutional neglect, misfiled reports, forgotten recognitions. She gave those findings to Joaquin. Together they built a map of injustice, a picture that was bigger than just one man. They weren't just building a defense, they were preparing a mirror, one that the state couldn't ignore. The night before the hearing, Joaquin returned to the detention center. He brought a sealed envelope, request for historical military review, National Defense Committee. Sebastian didn't open it. Will it change anything? It will remind the country who you were, and who I am now. A man still worth remembering. The next morning, the courtroom wasn't empty. Veterans had come, military officers, journalists, even a few students, brought by a professor who heard whispers of a legend reborn. Sebastian walked in without handcuffs. Hair cut, face washed, still frail, but not invisible anymore. Daniela's eyes followed him. Her father's name echoed in her mind. And now, the man who saved him would speak. At last. The courtroom felt changed, not brighter, not warmer, but something had shifted. The air no longer ignored Sebastian. Now it listened. He stood beside Joaquin Prado, in a simple but clean suit, shoes borrowed, a small comb in his pocket. Hands folded. Joaquin placed a thick folder on the bench. Inside, reports, photos, handwritten letters, records rescued from silence. The prosecutor didn't speak of disorder or recidivism. This time, he only listened, a quiet acknowledgement of a case that was no longer just a case. Joaquin began slowly. He traced Sebastian's timeline, showed how he entered the army, the names of the missions, the moments he was wounded but stayed. He projected an old black and white photo, a group of soldiers, one with a bandaged arm still standing tall, Captain Gabriel Molina. Then came testimonies, a retired colonel, an ex-military medic. Each spoke of Sebastian as if he were a myth made flesh. He carried me under gunfire. He stayed when others retreated. He gave time, he gave calm, he gave us a chance. Sebastian watched in silence, as if hearing a story about someone else. The past echoed too loud for him to speak. Then 2 officers entered. One carried a small blue box. Inside, the National Order of Courage, the medal that was never delivered. Until now. Sebastian stepped back, his voice barely audible. No, I don't deserve it. You do, said Daniela, stepping down from the bench, No robes, no title, only a daughter, now speaking for a father. My father came back. He wrote letters. He always mentioned you. Elias taught me what courage really means. He said, "If I come back, I want you to meet him." Sebastian trembled, not from cold, but from something older. He wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve. He didn't speak, but he didn't need to. Daniela took the medal, held it in both hands. "This isn't a gift. It's a return." Joaquin stood beside him. "This courtroom won't judge you anymore. It will remember you." "That's different." The prosecutor rose. He addressed the judge. "I request immediate dismissal of all charges, and a formal apology to Mr. Echeverria." Daniela nodded, her voice firm but full. "The court drops all accusations and recognizes Sebastian Elias Echeverria as a decorated veteran, with full rights to pension, assisted housing, and medical care." Then it happened, the moment no one expected. The entire room stood. Veterans, lawyers, the clerk, the bailiff, even the prosecutor, not by order, by honor. Sebastian stood there unsure. Then he looked at the medal, touched it with both hands, bowed his head, not from shame, from weight and relief. In the weeks that followed, he moved into a small apartment, white walls, a table with 2 chairs, a bed with clean sheets, warm water, silence. He made coffee every morning, listened to the street noise, didn't turn on the TV. He liked voices, footsteps, cars, proof that he was back in the world. Joaquin visited often, never announced, always with fruit or bread. They barely spoke, it wasn't necessary. Sometimes Sebastian still woke up sweating. Memories don't leave all at once. But now he had a blanket, a key, a door that opened from the inside. One Friday the buzzer rang. It was Daniela. She carried a folder. He hesitated, then opened the door. They sat at the kitchen table. She slid the folder to him. My father's letters, originals. Some I never read until now. He opened one carefully. The handwriting hit him like a breath from the past. "My mind held on because of Elias," one letter said. "He gave me the time I needed to make it home." Sebastian didn't speak, just read. Page after page. And in each one, he found himself. Not the man people forgot, but the one his friend remembered. When she left, he didn't open another letter. He sat by the window, watched kids play in the plaza below, felt the wind, but it wasn't cold anymore. Then a boy in a school uniform passed by, looked up, saluted him with a smile. The gesture was small, but full of meaning. Sebastian raised his hand, returned the salute, softly, sincerely, and in that quiet moment, he whispered to himself, "I thought no one would remember," but now he knew. Someone always does.